ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. We have seen so many things in the Grihastha especially the Grihastha where we prepared ourselves for the Grihastha through the Brahmacharya Ashrama so that we get graduated into Grihastha. It's not an easy journey that we need to really step into the Grihastha because it has a lot of responsibility to shoulder. A lot of responsibility, both in terms of spirituality and also in the terms of world outside. Because you have to set up a unit in the society outside in such a way that dharma will follow for eternity. And you are the pawn for taking it forward. And for spirituality, Brahmacharya Ashrama, Grihastha Ashrama is one ashrama where there's so much of an opportunity for you to see that spiritually that you grow. Unfortunately, over a period of time, somehow the sannyasa ashrama is given such a great importance in the society, and also they condemned all that connected with the Grihastha Ashrama. Whereas Upanishads or Shastras did not condemn like that. In fact, particularly Grihastha Ashrama is basically that is set up by a family where husband and wife are together. That's why marriage is supposed to be extraordinary ritual in our life. And not only ritual, it's a great commitment. It was never looked at upon as a form of license for sex. It was something which was far beyond. Unfortunately, today what happened is that the way the descriptions have gone, that they condemned Grihastha because that it is involved kama. And artha kama, in the right way when you use it, our Purushartha says that artha kama, you have to take it towards dharma, in dharma way, then it takes further into the moksha way. So, what is the direction that we have to do it? Practically, we need to practice. That's what is the Grihastha. So, Grihastha is something which is essentially there to celebrate because the idea of the consciousness is there, but then, what we call it as Chetana. See, we don't have better word in Sanskrit, in English, that's why we call it as consciousness. Consciousness, as I discussed earlier, has two components. One is called as the freedom, and the other is the feeling. And these two correspond to the ideas of in Chetana, we have idea of Sat, and Sat is basically one aspect of it, Chit is another aspect of it. These two are given by these two ideas. One is called as the freedom, and the other is the feeling. Chit belongs to feeling, freedom belongs to idea of Sat. But then the third important aspect is the Ananda. Unfortunately, consciousness, when you replace idea of uh, the Chetana by consciousness, this is one thing that we are missing. And a lot of people take consciousness as the idea of Chetana, but I would like to add this concept of Ananda behind it. And that Ananda is like celebration. And Grihastha Ashrama is an ashram where we celebrate all these things. Every moment is a celebration. In order to celebrate that, we have all these Puranas. It's like this that often people think of Puranas. Don't question these Puranas, whether Ganesha has this elephant head, somebody can have elephant head. No, these are all the intellectual questions. Rise above the level of intellect. Intellect is at a lower level, and your feeling, your freedom, these are at the higher level, much deeper than the intellect. And that is where the Puranas cater to. And you see that all the words of Puranas are essentially to convey that meaning that there is something which is beyond the level of intellect. We have a life. Live that life. It's not with intellect. Stop the intellect at lower level and then be with that particular thing. That's what all these ceremonies, celebrations that we have in the Grahastha. That is why I said that puja adisha anurag. You see, one thing that caters to this particular feeling, which is beyond the level of intellect, is the bhakti, is the bhava. And that bhava bhakti we can practice in the grahasthashram. If I have these practices, just now you were talking about the idea of the stories. Whether it happened or not, these are not important. Where it happened also is not important. Whether Vasishta was there in the same place where Vishwamitra was there, it does not matter. The idea is that look at the bhava that it conveys, the bhava of love, and that can transcend every other gains that you have. All other gains add to your ego. That's what is the golden shackles. Whereas bhava is something which breaks this golden shackle and gives you that feeling beyond that all the shackles, and that's what is the feeling. Freedom, real freedom is when you rise with the help of your bhava or love. So that is what is very important. And in order to practice that, we have the Grasthashrama. And you see that how many advantages are there. Whatever that we discussed in the form of Sanatana Dharma, like for example, prema, tyaga, karuna, indriya graha, all these things are involved in these practices that we do. Like for example, every practice involves indriya nigraha. That means you have to do some ritual, blah, 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 all those things. And then at the end of it, whole day you keep yourself uh, fasting. At the end of it, you eat food. In Shivaratri, you don't even sleep. It's a wonderful it's Indriya Nigraha. So, like that, Indriya Nigraha is there something which is taking beyond that. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says that the knowledge that you get, higher knowledge that you get with the help of Indriya Nigraha, that's what is Sanyate Indriyaha. The Jnanam Labdha Param Shantim. See, it is not ordinary Shanti. Param Shantim. That means to say extraordinary Shanti that you get. So, Jnanam Labdha Param Shantim Achirena Adhigachati. That means you reach that state which is ever in that state. And when you get that kind of satisfaction, under that satisfaction that you get with the help of these bhakti rituals and all other things automatically will be absorbed by you. And that's the reason why Grihasthashrama is such a wonderful state where two people of different ideas they get together and become a Grihastha. But then, all right, you keep your idea, I keep my idea, we can live in harmony. Children are there, they have got their own space, we have got our own space. In spite of it, we all live in harmony. That is what basically in Grihasthashrama teaches us. A guest comes to the house. With a smile, you receive him. Even if you don't have it, you entertain the guest. You give it to him. Happily, you give it to him. If you cannot give it, you feel miserable. See, that giving gets happiness only in the Grihasthashrama. In Sannyasashrama, what is that you give? In Brahmacharya ashram, what is there to give? So these ashramas are not that potential to spiritually grow, make you to grow, other than the Grihasthashrama. In fact, unfortunately, what happened? When they condemn the Grihasthashrama, that's the reason why the uh, our culture gave more and more importance to dharana, dhyana, samadhi, meditation. And you see that umpteen number of schools of meditation, and everybody comes and sits and meditate and all that. We don't know what is really happening within, but that became an important thing. But actually, what Patanjali also says that you practice certain things to see that you dharana suyogyatam manaha. It will take you to that dharana, which will ultimately take you to dharana dhyana. So dhyana should be something which is begotten by the practices that we do. Like for simple thing is that you do all that nice, wonderful arrangement for Ganesh Puja or something like that. After that, you feel you sit down. Ah, what a wonderful thing it is. You are always in dhyana at that time. Dhyana is not separated from the day-to-day life. Unfortunately, people have separated out saying that, that dhyana is something separate. It is mindful dhyana, mindless dhyana, mind involved dhyana, excluded dhyana. I mean, all kinds of nonsense they brought about. Whereas I would say that this must be something which is the Grihastha Ashrama naturally gets into that state. That's why we have such extraordinary, wonderful examples to show that somebody who does diligently with joy the grasta level, at that time he gets the benefits of the sadhana of meditation, etc. And we have such a beautiful example. That's what is Dharma Vyata. The story comes in Mahabharata itself. Dharma Vyata story where Kaushika is a saint, and is a Brahmin. And he was sitting and meditating in the forest. And while he was meditating in the forest, some birds were making noise. Birds make noise, and he was in the forest to listen to that bird's noise. But even that disturbed him. Opened his eyes, looked at the birds. The birds fell down dead, burnt by his tapas shakti. On one side, he felt very sorry because he had to kill the birds. But on the other side, he was also happy. Wow, I have so much of a strength that I can, my power of sadhana is so great that I could burn the birds. But then he was feeling hungry. Then he went away to into the village from the forest. He went into the village and he went to a house. And then that lady in the house, but he said, Bhavati Bhikshan Dehi. He came out to give, she came out to give him Bhiksha. Meanwhile, her husband walked in. When the husband walked in, immediately she took an excuse from this Kaushika. I said, I'm sorry, my dear saint. I'll definitely take care of you. But my husband walked in, therefore, that let me take care of you important things that he needs. After that, I will come and take care of you. Why don't you sit down? That very step that she has taken actually angered him, irritated him. Said, I am such a great saint. I have achieved so much in my sadhana, my dhyana. Whereas after all, that husband fellow, what is he? He just does some labor work or the field work. He comes back and she gives greater importance to him than to me, preference to him. But then immediately he consoled himself saying that, after all, she does not know how great I am. I can excuse her. As if he is a broad-hearted, broad-minded. He said, okay, I can excuse her. And then she said about 10 minutes, waited for 10 minutes. 10 minutes have become 15 minutes. He was already getting angry because he was delayed. And then afterwards she comes out and says to him, saying that I'm so sorry, extremely sorry. It took a little more extra time because, he needed something. So I took care of it and now momentarily I come here. Please forgive me for the delay. And then come, I'll take care of you. Your food, your needs, and you can sleep and all that. But then this man was still angry, Kaushika. And then she said, I'm sorry, genuinely sorry. There is no intention from my side. I just took care of him. But then his anger did not come down. When his anger did not come down, then she says, my dear Kaushik, I am not a bird to be burnt by your anger. Wow, that shook him. This lady taking care of household, Grasta, and then what happened in the forest between me and the birds, only the birds know, no, birds are also not there, only I know it. And how this lady came to know about it. So immediately he falls, Janin Sadhana, Sadhaka, therefore he falls at her feet and said, please tell me, how could you get that particular knowledge? What happened secretly in the forest? What kind of pranayama do it? And Nadi Shuddhi, Sapa, Kapalbhati, what do you do it? And then she says, Papa, I don't know any of those techniques, sir. Huh? I just take care of my husband. That's what simple. My household, my husband takes, I come here. And I'm happy with these things that I'm doing it. See, that a particular explanation shows that Grahastha can get that dhyana, which is supposed to be after a lot of practice of this thing. These are the kind of stories we have that shows that how important Grahastha's life is. But then he could believe. He said, no, no, I think you are secretly practicing something you're not telling me. I want to know exactly what you're doing because after all, he's interested in sadhana. I want to do that sadhana. He said, I have nothing. I'm very honestly saying, and this is what I tell the truth. And if you still want to know about, then you ask my guru and his Dharma Vyatha. Why don't you go to him and you find out he's in the next village? Immediately he asks her that what is the address where he has to go. And is it on GPS, etc. He said, no, you go to the center of the village and then you can find out Dharma Vyatha. There itself it is written. So you can find out right away. Then honestly that he went to the next village, the center of the village, he looked around and then only one boat that he saw was Dharma Vyatha meat shop. He suddenly thought this man is a meat seller. And I'm looking for Dharmayata, who's supposed to be a saint, guided her. So therefore he was looking around and asked somebody, is there any Dharmavyata here? That person said, don't you see the board? And he is Dharmavyata. Meanwhile, Dharmavyata, who was there in the shop, he also looks at him. He says, hey, gentlemen, come here. You are Kaushik, no? You went to that lady. That lady guided you here. My God. How does this fellow know? And he's cutting the meat and then selling it. The householder's duty, he was doing it. Happily, totally is what he is doing that. Wait, I'll finish this job and then close his shop and then we'll go home. He takes him home. And then once he reaches home, Dharma Vyatha, then he realizes Dharma Vyatha. Vyatha means actually butcher. Dharma Vyatha is somebody who is a butcher. And a truthful, honest, sincere, valued butcher. So that's what his name. And then once he goes home, he takes care of his aged parents and all that, makes them comfortable. Then he comes and sits in front of Kaushik and says, yes, what can I do for you? By that time, Kaushik mind is already blown into pieces. Yes, I'm sorry. You don't have to do anything for me, but what is that I'm seeing? And that lady, she is attending her husband, and then she knows about what happened in the forest, and you are doing the work of butchery, and then you take care of your parents, and you know about all this. I'm just confused. It's not confusion. Its question is that you have wrong values for these things. Unfortunately, we are given so much of importance to this dhyana, and therefore that umpteen number of dhyana schools, dhyana techniques, tons of money is wasted on that, making people to sit down. But then grihastha is something which is extraordinary. It could have taken you. But what is supposed to be done is that activity that you do, like for example, puja that you do, sit down quietly. After all that satisfaction of doing puja, be in that sense of satisfaction. Establish yourself in that sense of that. No hurry, no nothing. That means no more mind and no more intellect, no more anything like that. Aprana, amana, shubha. All those things. Aksharat parataparaha. That's what is the Shastra says. And it pushes you to that. You go to a temple, the way that you go to a temple, go around the whole temple. After seeing all that, come back, sit down in the temple. Say that, yes, let me shut off everything. Be in a peaceful state. That's what is dhyana. Dhyana is not what you do it. That's why I always say, dhyana is what you undo it. The undoing takes place. So all these puja, etc., are helping you to undo yourself. For that, you need to do it. Details are not important. In order to give the story from the for the festivals are taken from the Puranas. So therefore, that you have a rich Puranas which you enliven them generation after generation that you pass it on. How many generations have been doing this Ganesha festival? Every house does a Ganesha festival. Every youngster involved in the Ganesha festival. Actually, you think that you are doing Ganesha festival, but what Vedanta says is that you are enliven the Purana that talks about Ganesha festival, all those things, till today that it is alive, vibrant, living, because that we do that. Satyanarayana Puja that we do it, it is also exactly whatever that has been done. In fact, the story says Kaushika and Shuka, and then they have done it. So from that time onwards, several thousands of years, it is maintained. And who is maintaining? A grahastha is maintaining, passing on to the next generation. But what we need to do it is that the way that everything else has been updated, the same way the stories, the language that is used in these things also should be updated. Unfortunately, many times I go to the Satyanarayana Katha, people talk about it. The way that the Kathakara is talking Katha, absolutely, it is so uh, monotonous and it does not have any articulation. It doesn't have the joy. It doesn't have that thrill that is involved in that story. The same thing about Jamambanta story when they talk about in case of, Ganesha in the Utsav. At that time, the way that they talk about this Jambavanta story, many times I wonder that you could make this story into a nice, wonderful thing. Next time, I suggest that whenever that you are doing Ganesha Puja, that day, whatever the stories of Ganesha that are there, can we make a nice, wonderful play-like thing? Let people enjoy that. Even somebody comes in the role of Jambavata, somebody comes in the role of Krishna, and all that happens. Shamatak takes place. Wow, it's wonderful. And this way, when we do it, we live in that. Don't worry about whether we should tell it in Sanskrit, etc., etc. Many times, the stories that they talk about in a language which is basically, even though it's a local language, but it's a local language of a minimum 1,000-year old. Today's language is different. Add few Sanskrit English words on that, and then manage it. In fact, I make my talks, my stories in my talks with the present day concept. Like, for example, when I talk about Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that you do vikarma even when you go to the forest. That means to say, even when you go to the forest, you'll be looking for whether Wi Fi is available or not. See, that's what is today's concept. Another 10, 15 years later, Wi Fi also will go away. Something else will come. Fine, we can update all those things. So, this way that we should convey all these things in such a way, they have that potential passion in that. And another thing is that somehow people introduced what is called as phala, phalashruti. And not only that, they give so much of importance to that phalashruti. I said, tell the whole story, we don't hear that you go ahead, but phalashruti give us clearly. Phalashruti means what? By doing this, that your child gets married, your son gets this thing, you get promotion, and the Baapre. Why don't you do it for the sake of living the spiritual life rather than all these worldly things? World anyway is getting, you are getting it. It is growing. That's why material world, what you do it is you put the shrama in that. Whereas that's what is shrama. Whereas these things, when you talk about, is the ashrama. It's beyond that shrama. And that's what we need to go. Yes, in fact, I would tell you that even if God comes to me and says that, "Why, I'll give you one, two, three, four," I said, please don't do that. Make me to see that I earn that. You don't insult me by saying that I don't have potential to do it. Please don't do that. You have given me strength, you have given me everything, let me do it. So therefore, that basically that we are not looking for any benefit from any of these things, any of the vratas that we are doing, any of the puja that we do it. Absolutely, we are not looking for any phalashruti. Phala belongs to the activity that we do it. This is what Karma Yoga said. There is no difference between karma and karma phala. Karma, karma phala belongs to karma. Karma itself, it is not you. Let me do this karma with that passion, with that joy, and the joy that I get itself is the karma phala. There is no question of phalashruti. So therefore, I think we need to revive all these things in such a way that today's youth will be able to accept it, will be able to live these things. That's why it is necessary that we do all these things, bring it forward to the next generation. So this is why, in fact, I tell you that somebody was telling me that in Christianity, there's only one festival or two festivals. That's what is Easter is there, and then Christmas is there. Other than that, they don't have festivals, and the Easter and Christmas come almost like close to each other, and they are becoming followers of Hare Krishna movement. Why? Hare Krishna movement gives you 10 different festivals in a year. So that means to say you are you are not cutting a sorry figure there, pathetic. After all, my saint supposed to be put on a cross. I feel very sad about it. And there is nothing to celebrate. Whereas here, what we celebrate is every moment is a celebration, every festival is a celebration. Dasara is a celebration, Diwali is a celebration, Holi is a celebration. If you look back into the stories of all these things, you see that how much of joy, happiness that is there. That's why I said that all these things will add for the consciousness, this third dimension, which is called as Ananda. Satchit Ananda that completes the whole thing. That's why Chetana is Chetana only because that there is Ananda behind it. Otherwise, this question comes, what is the purpose of life? Purpose of life, if it is there outside the life, that means somewhere that you're looking for. Whereas purpose of life is in the life itself. And what is that? The joy, ananda. Every moment you live, that's why you said that purpose of life is embedded within the life itself. It's in our life itself. That's what we live. In fact, there's a beautiful story that I heard that somebody went to heaven, and then he saw that when he went to heaven and he saw that the procession going on, and then the procession there is Mirabai was singing, and some Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing, and somebody was doing something else. Tyagaraja was singing nice, wonderful kritis. And then he said, very innocently, he asked that fellow who was there, took him there. He said, they have come here, but then still they do it here? I said, what do you mean by that? They did all those things on the earth so that they come to heaven. And they do these things here also. He said, you are mistaken. Actually, they are doing, therefore they are in heaven. Whenever they do it, they are in heaven. They created heaven and the earth, not outside. You are thinking that you have come to heaven. No, this earth which is around you has become heaven because of these people. So therefore, the saints did not go to heaven, they create heaven around you. Your attitude is the one which creates heaven. So therefore, essentially, that Grihastha should become like a heaven. Grihastha should become like a God's place every moment. In fact, is it not that way? We have so many crores of gods that are there. Our house is filled with the godliness everywhere. That's what is the idea. So all these gods are there, nicely organized, beautifully arranged. It should be very picturesque. Your house should look like that. It's not that question of that you have devotion for God, that means you are afraid of God, therefore that you have God in the house. It's not fear, it's a love of God that's important. Fear of God indicates that God will punish you, God will take away something from you. God is not here to take away, He has much better business to do. So He is just, you celebrate it because that He has given you that. And unfortunately, what happens, some people, they're so caught up in these things. I wonder it. There's one person who I know that he is a follower of, you know, this path of Dvaita, dedication, devotion. And when he went to his house, the house was like a heap of garbage, and everything is kept everywhere, and there's nothing is taken care of. But he puts on the silk cloth and does the puja every day. And that silk cloth has never seen washing right from the time that it was born. And you can see all that sambar stains on that and then vegetables sticking on his cloth and all that. And that's supposed to be sacred cloth and a cloth for the puja, and that he wears. And added to that, these, you know, these days, whenever they print any invitation card for wedding, for house warming, etc., etc., they always put some Ganesha's picture or Krishna's picture, something like that. People have that nice, wonderful pictures. And all such greeting that he cuts that picture and pastes it on the wall. It's not anywhere he can paste it on the wall. Put some little rice and then paste on the wall. The house was looking like a den. So horrible. And he was a bhakta. I said, pathetic. It's a fear of God. You don't treat God like that. Nicely organize, nicely decorate. Have few things, but that's very important. So essentially, what we need to do is to understand why we are doing it for spiritual growth for you. That's what is important. So all these things, that means to say, a simple practices that are given in the puja, they have become fossilized because people have become blind. The bhakti is not important, the love is not important, but fear of God is the one which makes them do all this kind of thing. Come out of it. You have to say this only. It has become a ritual. I'm against these rituals. I'm against all these rituals, but it does not mean that you should not do it, but then practice out of heart. It's not the ritual that's important, but your heart is very important. Heartfully do it. Mantras, yes. Fine. Listen to these mantras. Have this wonderful. In fact, all the mantras indicate that you are just personifying the God there. God is a living entity in front of you. So that's what you feel it. When you do all these things, Grasthashrama will take you to a higher level. And when you do any of these things with that feeling, until intellect that is there belongs to the world outside. But these things, practices, nice, wonderful floral arrangement and all that you do, it transcends from the intellect to the level of bhavana. And that is where basically for Grasthashrama, 25, 30 long years that you have an opportunity to practice these things, immerse yourself in these things. Therefore, that it prepares you to go to the next level, what is called as the Vanaprastha. That's on one side. On the other side, you have acquired the knowledge and you have ennobled knowledge that we have reached. We have actually responsible for that knowledge in the Grasthashrama. What is your the responsibility for towards the knowledge that you have, like the way that you have runa. Knowledge, you have the runa for that. Runa means that you have responsibility. What is that? Acquire the knowledge and update the knowledge, enrich the knowledge, and then pass it on to the next generation. When you do all these three things, then only that you are eligible to get that knowledge, or you are otherwise sinning towards the knowledge. You are doing disservice to the knowledge. Acquire the knowledge, enrich it, pass it on to the next generation. So this is what we have done in the Grastha Ashrama, so that acquired the knowledge, we did the work. It may be secular knowledge. I don't say only the spiritual knowledge. Even the engineering, medicine, I take the knowledge, I increase the knowledge, enrich the knowledge, and ennoble the knowledge. See that what are the flaws that are there, I remove it. And it's my continuous responsibility. And then the next one is I pass it on to the next generation. That's when the next generation comes, I hand over the activity to them, and with all this enriched knowledge that I have, I will be an advisor. So when you come to the Vanaprastha, you are not involving directly into the work, because by that time, your next generation, your child, has become adult and he got married and he has a house and it is his house that we are staying. More important thing is this world belongs to them, younger generation, not us, the older generation. Older generation has an experience, older generation has all that um, uh, the uh, patience and all those things. Now we pass on this to the next generation. You don't get involved. I've seen many houses where the elderly people, they get involved in the things. They want to decide the things. Please don't you be the decider. Younger generation be the decider, because the world belongs to them. They have another 50 years of life in front of them, whereas you have hardly 20 years of life. So world does not belong to you, world belongs to them. Then what happens is that there is one psychological barrier that happens with us is that as we grow older and older, we become more and more defensive. Because naturally that we cannot do the activities what when we were doing it 20-year-old. 20-year-old, I could scale something, I could do something, I could go without food for days together. I could do all that adventure. But when I'm 70 years, 60 years, when I reach that case of mm, the culmination of the Grasthashtama, I can't do those things. Therefore, if I give any advice, I give an advice based on my capacities, my abilities. That's why I keep saying that the elderly people, they don't give their the driving of the car to their children. They want to drive. They're 70 years. Eyes are not clear. The hands are shaking, but they want to drive. They don't want to give the children because they say, oh, driving is very dangerous job. And particularly the traffic has increased, so I don't want you to drive. And they are much better persons to drive than you are. Their reflexes are much sharper, much stronger than you. Why don't you believe that? Why don't you proceed further? We don't want to grow up. This growing up is what is Grasthashrama, this Vanaprasthashrama. It's not growing old, it's growing up. When you look at the age, then it is growing old. When you look at the capacity, you are growing up. So Indian philosophy never looked at the idea of growing old or never looked at the idea of retiring. is a very funny word that we never had in our culture retiring. That's why Grastha will lead you to sannyasa, vanaprastha. In fact, vanaprastha is a very beautiful word that somebody goes to the forest. Vana is not that way. Vana actually means when you look at forest, it is as pristine as it is born. Nobody touched it. That means to say you go to that level where it is very natural, very spontaneous, very easy, and your mind can easily connect with that particular thing. Prasthana is going to that. Go back to that level. What happens is that now the child is grown, he has gotten the education in the Gurukul or the education, and then now he starts his journey. Let him grow in that journey. Vanaprastha. From that natural state of growing, you accept it. That's what is called as Vanaprastha. Unfortunately, Vanaprastha people equate that going into the forest, leaving the house. Please don't leave the house. Not the ideas of that. In fact, you can enjoy the way that how the child is growing. You can enjoy the way that how he is involved in doing various things. It's very important to see that it belongs to the next generation. Accept that. Now, what is the way that you developed? That he will also now will develop it further, will take it forward. Make the world a beautiful way. Give the world to the younger generation. They take it forward. Beautiful way. This is what is basically Vanaprastha. A wonderful way. And in Grihastha there is nothing wrong as long as that you follow this dharma principle, which is supposed to be prema, tyaga, karuna, indra nigraha, and dissolving of our ego. Many times what happens, the idea that we have becomes our ego. There are so many things which are developed in this culture in the form of symbols. In fact, the symbolism is so great in our culture. Everything is involved in the symbol. Like, for example, putting the bindi is a symbol. Putting the tuft is a symbol. And type of mark that you have on the forehead, it's a symbol. They're all symbols to identify certain things, to give identity for certain idea. In fact, it's very important to have those symbols so that we can don't 100 words can be explained by one symbol that you have. Like for example, somebody is having horizontal marks on the forehead. You know that he is a Shiva follower, and you know what is that he likes, etc., etc. These are the things. Somebody puts on the vertical, then you know what are his preferences. Marriages take place within them so that what happens is their ritual practices, the husband and wife, they have the same kind of an interest, same kind of growth. This is what basically the idea to see that the life should not be a struggle, life should be a harmony. And as much as possible, we create that harmony. The same way we created that harmony, vertical, they provided with the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. A Kshatriya marries a Kshatriya girl. It's not the question of what you fall in love with, but you marry and fall in love. That's a simple thing. Marriage and love, love and marriage. Earlier, that was the kind of situation. That's why what happens is that because of that reason, a Kshatriya marries another Kshatriya girl. There were so many Kshatriyas in this country, 600 countries, kingdoms were there. Absolutely, there was no war between them for almost like 1200 years. The first war came up only in Panipat war. Before in this land, we didn't have wars. Why? Who do you war with? Somebody or the other is your relationship. Your son's father-in-law, or your daughter, something else, your brother's son's what. So this way, everywhere it is connected. So the kingdoms flourished. Because even if there is a war, because the people remained, in fact, that was a very important thing. People used to be fed up with their ruler. They wanted to change the ruler. They would go to the next king, ask for a change of the ruler. So they give the idea, but then they have to war to annex it. In fact, this happened in the case of Gandhara Desha. The king was not useful. Therefore, the people of Gandhara Desha, they came to Rama to annex Gandhara Desha, to take that. Then Rama sent Shatrughna for that. So that annexing it. That means to say that king was useless, therefore that he had to be replaced. And even the war that fought for replacement to see that people are not affected by the war. That's why they were deciding the war on the harvest time so that everything is done, the fields are cheap. And then war is fought in the field where people are not there, minimum casualties of the people. So these are all the simple rules that were done. So that it was decided in such a way that what happens is the people were not affected by the war. Whatever that they were paying the taxes for one government, they pay the taxes to the other government. That's all. And for that, people were not affected by that. So therefore, that all these rules, regulations, and grahasthashrama were created in such a way that the prosperity is not affected by these things. This was there all the time. So essentially, what happens is that the rules and regulations were in such a way that we can always look at the progress of this country. That's the reason, this culture. Therefore, for so many thousands of years, this culture was again and again revised to see that accommodate the development of the society, development of the nature outside. But at the same time, this culture also has shown the idea that how the kings were there, changes of that happened, and such a huge land with the same culture that was there, with languages are different, types of life were different, and the dress code were different, all those things were different. But we had only one dharma. That's what is Sanatana Dharma. There's nowhere else this kind of an experiment, successful experiment has been done in the world, which we have done in this land, which survived till today. We need to update that. So there were the ideas of dharma sandigdha, that means one dharma fights with another dharma. In fact, today particularly, that people come with this particular idea, we need to look at our development of our career, so we have to go abroad, but then elderly parents are there at home. So can you stay back at home to take care of the parents? Don't go for upgrading your career? Fine. Or somebody says that I will go outside, make arrangements for the parents to be taken care of. On one call that I will come back because today all those things are there. That's also fine. They are not one opposite to the other. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? No, both these things are okay. Dharma is not compromised in the either way that you are doing it. In fact, I know there is one medical doctor, is a good friend of mine. He went to USA those days and graduated himself, extraordinary graduation in the radiology in such a way that he was the only person in India who was practicing that, who was having the knowledge of that great radiology. And he passed with great credibility there in US. And then he came back, wanted to set up a mega high class kind of that particular thing, but that was not necessary in this country at that time because so many other things have to develop. But he wanted to do that. And if it is not available, he wanted to go back to USA because all that knowledge that he acquired will go waste. And his father was a medical doctor. A very beautiful situation. His doctor, his father, he said, "My dear son, I have such clientage here. Everybody loves me. I'm a god for in front of them. And I became old and you became a doctor. Do you want to continue this legacy?" The son was so great. He gave up all that idea of establishing something extraordinary in radiology. He started becoming a general practitioner at his father's clinic. Extraordinary. And he continued to do the service to the people. Gave up everything. See, the value is in the form of doing the service to the people. He became so important, so great, that later on he became a mayor also for the our town. People used to take him as God. He became more God than his father. His father himself was extraordinary. I know both father and son. And that was extraordinary. Moment when I heard that this man did this way, my salutations to him so much. So this was the kind of thing that you give up the career, you did something wrong, people say that, all right, career is one thing, but serving the people is another thing. But in both ways that you would have served the dharma, and dharma is taken care of. All that he says is that what you do is not important, but have you taken care of dharma by doing this? That's what is important. It's very, very nice to see that dharma we understand from the depth for any practices that we do. It has the background behind dharma. One very important thing in Dharma is that it's not for the selfishness that we do it, selflessness that we do it. Ahankara is the way that you are away from Dharma. That's why dissolve the Sankara, Prema, Tyaga, dissolve the Sankara. That's what you take care of Dharma. And only Grahastha is a large area where you can dissolve the Sankara again and again, but perform in this world outside, taking care of Dharma. So slowly, let's move on to the next stage of life, graduation from the Grahastha into the Vanaprastha. It's an extraordinary, wonderful stage. We will talk about it and see that how our people have contributed in growing up rather than giving up. That's what is the level that we try to look into it. We'll stop it for this today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.